I'm Doug Doherty, president of Hamilton Flourishing. We're so glad you've joined us as we continue down this journey talking to candidates for the March 2nd municipal elections in Chattanooga, Tennessee. The mayor is up. All 9 city council races are up. There are 36 people running at this point, 15 for mayor. And we're joined today by one of those candidates for mayor, George Ryan Love. He goes by the name of Ryan, but his ballot, the ballot will actually show George Ryan Love. So just remember that if you become a fan of Ryan watching this, that the ballot shows up as George Ryan Love. So he's a candidate for mayor. I do want to tell you that the election is March 2nd. Voter registration ends February the 1st. Early voting will begin February the 10th and end on February the 25th. So we're doing a series of these videos, and I do want to say that if you go to the HamiltonFlourishing.org website, you can find a picture of all the people running for both mayor and the council, and it's connected to either their website and or their Facebook page, and it will also have, for those who have done it, these interviews. And we're asking generally the same questions all through these interviews to everybody. They get the same questions. We've changed it just a little bit because we've had a little more experience now that we've done several, and we realized we were being redundant. But it's the same sense. So you can go there to that website, and you can see all the candidates. You can see all their stuff. You can also register to vote from that website. And if you don't know what city council district you're in, you can actually press a button and put in your address, and it'll tell you what district you're in. So that's HamiltonFlourishing.org. And I want to thank Patrick Hampton today, who's recording all this and making this possible. And so thank you, Patrick. Well, Ryan, we're glad that you're here.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming by.
You're welcome.
Let me ask you a few personal questions to get started. Tell us a little about yourself. Where were you born?
I was born here in Chattanooga, Tennessee.
Were you really?
Yes, I was. I actually ended up working at the hospital, at the house I was born at. I was Erlanger Hospital, August 12th, 1978, about 9 in the morning, according to my mom.
I was born at Erlanger too, so.
Yeah. I don't know if it looks the same those years later, but who knows, renovations year to year. But
no, no, for my age, it doesn't look the same.
Right.
Did you go to school here in Chattanooga?
From elementary, it started at Harrison Elementary. My family moved around a lot, Florida, Dunlap, and then later in life, from 4th grade, about 87 on, attended Red Bank. So from 4th grade all the way through high school, I went to Red Bank High School.
Okay.
I went to the original Red Bank Elementary, junior now middle, but before they rebuilt the new buildings. So there's a Food City where my elementary school was.
Right.
I guess you can see where you took spelling near the produce section. I've actually been there,
Yeah.
you know. But I actually played in that playground in the 80s, and now there's a food store there in Red Bank.
And did you go to college?
Yes, I did. In 1996, from 2000, I attended the University of Tennessee at Knoxville. I have a political science degree. I studied Spanish since my first year of high school all the way up through college as well. I just love foreign language. I love speaking, reading, writing it. We had a great program at my school, and I speak it and use it very well today.
Okay. And I think you told me you had some advanced degrees as well.
I have a Master of Education, and for about a year I taught Spanish out of Memphis. And I kept up with my language ability, and later, when I was working at the hospital, I'm able to use my bilingual ability at the register, helping with transactions. Someone told me speaking, he said, you can take these interpreter classes. So I got 32 hours of Spanish medical interpreter training at Erlanger Hospital.
Really?
Yes, sir.
Well, I think you will be the first bilingual mayor if you get elected.
When, my friend, speak it as though, and I pray it will be so.
And we've got 6.3% Hispanic, according to the latest Census
I do a
Bureau,
lot of business and have a lot of good friends at La Carniceria Loa. I do my transactions there. I visit one over on Broad Street, and I visit one over Hickson every once in a while. So I'm good friends with those folks, so I love the diversity of our community. And those who speak Spanish, bienvenido a la revolución del amor. Welcome to the revolution.
Why do you believe you would make a good mayor?
Well, it comes from the heart. I have a political science undergrad. That means I understand the Constitution and civil rights. I'm not a businessman. I'm a working man. I make $10.50 an hour. I understand the heart of affordable life has to do with the living wage. And we have suffered under the bane of big business running our government, taking our taxpayer dollars, snowballing us with race identity politics, gender identity politics, and taking our resources, building buildings in neighborhoods that we can't use during the global pandemic, and nothing fundamentally changing for the people. We need to unionize all lines of work, and the real measure of how we are doing should be how the regular family is doing. How well a business is doing should be measured in how the poorest pay, not the richest, is paid. And I've never been in City Hall, but the city halls that we live in are where you work, where you sleep, where you eat, and where you go. I bring the perspective of the working class of Chattanooga. I have a poli-sci undergrad. I'm bilingual. I know what it's like to make a living. I understand the intricacies of state policy, government policy. I've run for Congress. I've run for county mayor. So I've met our congressman. I've met our city mayor. I know a few members of the county commission. David Sharp was running when I was running. So I have a good understanding of the interplay of policy at each and every single level that affects us here in City of Chattanooga. So you ask about a City of Chattanooga issue, well, I could tell you, is it a state policy? Is it a county policy? Is it a national policy? Because I know that we're a citizen of every level of government. So the city mayor has to work within the framework of those levels of government, and I understand that. I'm not a businessman, but I understand how government works. And I also understand what it means not to make a living wage and to decide food, rent, and health care. And I know many of you do too.
Okay. As you and I are talking back and forth, what has prepared you for this kind of work?
Going back to the previous answer, okay, first of all, I know what poverty is. I have the poli-sci undergrad.
Okay.
Okay. So I've studied constitutional law, urban politics, ancient medieval political thought. Basically, the education I got at UT Knoxville and how government works, civil rights work. I have a pocket copy of the Constitution in my hand. So I understand which amendments actually apply to public policy. The 13th Amendment, what has to do with slavery and involuntary incarceration being tied to the criminal justice system. So we need a referendum on the 13th Amendment because privatizing of inmates leads to modern day slavery because it never existed. So we have to unlearn and unteach and challenge the misinformation around the Constitution and the disinformation, the lack of information and the picking and choosing of words and phrases which lead, when we're taught the wrong information, we're taught misinformation. I'm an educator and a political scientist, so I bring that perspective of educating the public, empowering the public, and going by the original text of what our rights are and what is right and what is wrong.
Okay. What do you regard, Ryan, as one of the more signal achievements of your life that you point to and say, gee, I really hit it out of the park here?
Well, in college, I was working on my master's thesis. I did it in the target language of Spanish. So to completing my master's thesis on Latin American acculturation, so acculturación de la Hispanoamérica, okay? The acculturation of Hispanic American. To finish that thesis, to do interviews with Spanish-speaking families, ask them questions in their target language, get their feedback. What's it like being in America? What's it like, if your children are raised abroad or raised here? So completing that master's thesis in the target language and really getting a perspective. That is one thing that, and of course my experience studying in Mexico. Going through that experience, learning about our history, and it forever changed me because I actually took time to spend time with families, engage them where they are.
Okay, good answer. Tell me, this is a little tough question. This is kind of,
Okay.
But it goes to something very important.
Okay.
Tell me what you think about Chattanooga. And let me phrase the question
Okay.
to say, what is the truth about the city? In other words, there's a line that we're a Renaissance city, we're a great outdoors place, full of entrepreneurs, gig city, good community for the arts, things like that. But how do you see the city?
Well, if you make $10.50 per hour, and it took you 4 years to get to that at a 10 cents an hour raise per year, if you're disabled and you can't get around because you have no car, if you encounter people who have no home and have no food, may I have $5 to go to the Family Dollar? And that's what I see. I see people left behind. The beauty of a city is not in the arts, not in the trees, not in the building. It's in how you care for those of lowest estate. And until every person who needs a home has one, every person who is hungry is fed every day, and everyone has health care that they can actually afford to use, our beauty should be measured in how we care for people. Because there's a theater called Theater of the Oppressed, and it is everywhere. I see people hurting. I see people on my job. There's no beauty in working a woman until her third trimester because she can't afford to take the time off work for maternity leave. There is no beauty in that. So I see Chattanooga with a long way to go.
Okay. Tell me this is a follow-up question. Tell me then what you think is the right direction for Chattanooga. Where should we be headed during the next 4 years?
You got to look in context of the COVID pandemic. Okay? So again, in college you learn about was it Maslow's hierarchy of needs? Meeting people with the greatest need. Leveling the playing field. Okay? So I see a city with a 21st century public transit system. I see a city where no one goes without a home for a night. No one goes without a meal for a second. Okay? Where everyone has a union. Where everyone has a voice. Okay? I see a city, the human beings of the city, the people, like Chattanooga Strong, we the human beings who reside in this place, everyone deserves a living wage. A living wage for table service at $10 plus tips for table service. $15 minimum for workers because $10 an hour. Where are you going to live? What's affordable if you have no money? Okay, I see and unions for hospital workers because they work 100 hours and they're never home and they're making decisions based upon they drink energy drinks all day. I see this every day. I see a city where people have a say in their lives. Where we're not cogs in the machine.
You don't need to. I don't think you need to yell. We're fine.
I'm sorry about that. Forgive me.
We're just a small studio.
Thank you. Forgive me. I see a city where people are not cogs in the machine of medical for profit. I see a city where we're not cogs in the machine of the restaurant industry. I see a city like in Europe because we have strong unions, strong labor force, and we the people thrive, and we the people can survive without government assistance.
Okay, let me move on then. What do you think, and I think this will follow pretty naturally from this, is the proper role of city government? More hands-on, more hands-off, let other sectors handle some of the challenges and opportunities? How do you see the role of city government in the life you've just described?
If the government is we the people, then obviously it's hands-on. The essence of representative government is, like when I ran for county mayor, put the public back in public office. It's never been hands-off. It's either hands-on the business community, helping them out, and foot on the little guy. It's never been hands-off. I'm not going to get vulgar, but I want to. Now,
Okay.
it's never, okay, so the city government, if not us, then who would it be? I believe it's regular people getting on the ballot like me, using city resources and the power of the office to fight for the civil justice, the criminal justice, and the labor justice of the people. Absolutely hands-on. But we need to hold the business community accountable and do like Dr. King says, realign the wealth from it takes billions to realign wealth. And then AOC said, make a billion, take a billion. They both said the very same thing. So through a living wage, union-based protocol for all, the role of the government should be to empower the people. The power to the people is not a song, it's not a slogan, it's a call to action. The city government must comprise of working people. It must be hands-on, it must comprise of working people, it must take on the business class, and it must change the life for the working poor.
Okay. Now, tell me this. What are the top 3 issues for you in this election?
I did a voter guide for another group. I can't remember the name of so to keep everything in consistency, I'm going to go with the same points. Unions for all lines of work. In the voter guide, I can't name the name of the agency, but okay. But and the second was police accountability, and third was community input and budgeting. We can tie everything to those 3 points. Okay. When I ran for Congress, the Fair Wage Initiative Act, $15 minimum, 20 for skilled labor, 15 plus tips for table service, $15 log hour for truckers, full paid maternity leave, based upon what the doctor recommends. And then a say in staffing, especially at the hospital level, because you can't give good medical advice on 2 hours sleep. So, and then accountability for the police. We're going to appoint a new police chief, preferably a female of color. We're going to have a new city attorney, a civil rights attorney, and we're going to have a new policy where all matters of police misconduct, violation of civil rights will be brought directly to our attention, and we will take immediate action. Because I made a promise at some of the events I've been to, because there are people that have been killed by the police, and they want justice. We're going to look into that. No one's going to get by. No one's above the law. You cannot uphold the law by breaking the law. No one's above the law. From the president to the police, no one's above the law. And we're going to make that a policy. We're going to uphold the Constitution and uphold the right to petition your government.
Okay. Let's jump on here. We need to move on.
Thank you.
That's great to hear what you had to say.
Thank you, sir.
Now, what will be your priorities, though? I mean, we're right in the middle of this COVID thing.
Right.
They don't know how long the vaccine is going to work. It hasn't been out long enough.
Right.
They don't know lots of stuff about it. So,
right.
So what will be your priorities? Not just because of COVID, but what will you be your number one priority? I just want one. What's your number one priority going to be?
Okay. Again,
day one, you walk in. What do you want done?
Day one, house and feed all the homeless. The people in the lowest measure of state to level the playing field. We had a Category 3 tornado, but if you have no home to get blown away, where do you go? So, and I feel bad for East Brainerd, though. My brother worked for the city, and he worked on that, so he did a great job with that. So, level the playing field for those in the lowest estate.
Okay. Do you support some kind of increase in taxes? If so, what?
It's a loaded question. I do believe the business community needs to pay their fair share of taxes. Okay? Because that money needs to go to rental assistance. Now, here's one thing, though. The business community got relief money for PPE program, small business grants, and the like. But if your business collecting rents and mortgages, why are you still hounding us for rent if you've got money to cover that? So I want some real accountability when it comes to tenants' rights and homeowners' rights. Okay, so the working class doesn't need any more taxes, but taxpayer dollars should be used to help those in the greatest need. If you have millions and millions of dollars, you need to pay your fair share of taxes, not less taxes. But if you're on unemployment because you've lost your job due to COVID, you need taxpayer revenue to support yourself. So depending on the situation, we need a healthy influx of taxpayer dollars at every level to support those who have no jobs. We need to increase them a little bit because they're too low. We need a healthy supply of taxpayer money to help those in need.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense, I think.
Thank you.
What can the city do to continue to see our economy grow and grow more jobs in the Chattanooga area? What can the city do to continue to see our economy grow?
During a global pandemic with 300,000 dead in the community, I think if the pandemic was not an issue, that would be an appropriate question. Since the pandemic is an issue, creating new jobs, but and exposing more people to the virus is something that we need to do very, very carefully. Okay, I talked to doctors. How many do you have in the COVID unit? About 100. How many have died? I can't say. So I see doctors every single day. So I mean, growing new jobs, I mean, if we weren't in a pandemic, that'd be important. But however, what do we do with people making $8, $9, $10 an hour? Okay, one candidate in the race said I created 200 jobs. There's 182,000 people in Chattanooga, give or take one or two. I don't know exact number. What are we going to do about the low-wage jobs we already have? Okay, people who clean toilets for $10 an hour, they're not going to go work for Amazon. Okay, and as long as we have a low-wage economy, we have the concept of the Stop Bezos Act. Bad employers zero out public subsidies. Because what's going to happen is you get a whole bunch of people making wages like mine. They're going to be on Section 8, food stamps, WIC. So new jobs won't do them any good. We got to turn the bad jobs into better jobs.
All right. Let me change gears just a little bit.
Thank you.
What's the proper role of government in the life of families? What's your philosophy on this issue?
Well, you got to go policy by policy. Okay? State, city government. State, city, county, federal government. Okay. Again, that's a mile wide and about an inch deep. So on a policy for the city government, okay, when it comes to families, there needs to be city resources because at one of the rallies, listening to the people, there's not enough money for domestic violence victims. So it goes back to community input in budgeting. Because, see, when I do a budget proposal, I'm going to get people from every sector of the community. We're going to look at this together because I don't want anybody left out. Because my brain can't think of all the individualities when it comes to family, like money for domestic violence victims. If they're homeless, make sure everybody has a home. Make sure there's quality food available. And then with the county, kind of work hand in hand. Make sure that there's resources for, I guess, sex education. You know, is there health care for women? So there's about 1 million issues that you have to look at when it comes to families. So, and every family has their own idea of how much the government should be in the role thereof. But all the resources should be available when it comes to health care, when it comes to safety, when it comes to preparedness for the next Category 3 tornado. So there's 1 million issues when it comes to families that we have to, or the next natural disaster preparedness. So making sure everyone has food, everyone has shelter, everyone has mortgage and rental protections, everyone can get food when they need it, and those types of issues. Okay.
Good.
Working with the schools and making sure we're properly educated on what this says, because the misinformation and disinformation around what our laws and Constitution actually says is what's killing our society, because we are almost purposely not told what this thing says, right to bear arms. It's so out of context that it's beat into our brains, and it's taught to us by the gun manufacturers, it's taught to us by the NRA.
Okay.
But what does it really say?
Let's go on just because we can get to that question in a second.
There you go.
Do you see Ryan? Oh, I need to tell you, we're talking to Ryan Love, George Ryan Love, goes by the name Ryan, who will be on your ballot March 2nd, running for mayor of Chattanooga. The ballot will read George Ryan Love, but he goes by Ryan. And you'll see rotating up on the screen, you'll see ways to contact Ryan. And I also will point you to the hamiltonflourishing.org website where you can also find the same sort of information. Do you see a role for churches, synagogues, mosques, and temples in local government? Or are they just out?
Of course. I'm going to give you an example. I go to Renaissance Presbyterian Church, and our pastor, shout out to Trisha Dillon Thomas, I was at the Poor People's Campaign Zoom meeting, which he is a part of. Now, of course, because the Constitution says, you know, there's not supposed to be an establishment of religion, and there's not supposed to be no prohibiting of the free exercise thereof. But as a Christian, when the church is silent, the world goes to hell. You can quote me on that in a lot of ways. So, but they need to be involved in the social issues of the day. I mean, think about the film Amazing Grace. He was a Christian, but his beliefs led to the abolition of slavery. See what I'm saying? So when Christian people do nothing, evil triumphs. So we have to follow the example of Dr. King. He was a Christian first and foremost. So we need to follow his lead. We are to be doers and not hearers only. So absolutely, because God is interested in the plight of the common people, and you can't do that if you're checked out.
Okay. Going to change gears just a little bit.
Thank you.
How do you think race plays out in the city of Chattanooga? According to data from the U.S. Census Bureau, the city in 2019 was 62% white, 31.4% black, 6.3% Hispanic. So it's a good mix. And how does the issue of equity play out in all this? How do you respond to the claim of systemic white racism? How do you see this whole issue of race playing out in our city?
It goes back generations, and it is very much real. It goes into city planning. It goes to why we have the back in the 30s, back over on the west side, why there's housing for blacks here, housing for whites over here. So it is real. Okay, it is 100% real. Okay, so there's racism in city planning. There's racism in educational outcomes that are acceptable. There's racism in policy. There's racism in the Constitution, because the 13th Amendment says slavery and voluntary servitude should not exist unless you've been convicted of a crime. And what happened? Mostly African Americans, historically, went to jail. Now they made them work for the corporations. It's in the Constitution, so that's racist right there. I mean, the Declaration of Independence calls Native Americans Indian savages. It's in our DNA, so we must acknowledge it. We must fight it. We'll never win the battle if we pretend it doesn't exist.
Okay, fair answer. Let's shift gears again. Do you support the efforts to make the city police more accountable to an outside community board and to reallocate funds from the Chattanooga Police Department to non-police budget items?
Unequivocally, yes. The next step is part of my platform. Okay.
Elaborate, please.
Because a review board with an obtuse, stuck-up city council is just a slap on the wrist. We need some teeth. So, this is what I want to do. Let's say I get elected mayor. The first thing I want to do, the community has called for the replacing of the police chief. I want to find a person of color. I want to find someone, probably female, but I'm going to ask that person, all right, have you ever been treated badly for whistleblowing? Have you ever had a problem in the department? And are you with me in holding your fellow officer accountable to the highest standard of law enforcement? Okay, so I'm going to be looking actively for a chief that won't take. We gave you resources for race relations, we spend them on something else. There needs to be some feedback, because I remember that conversation on the news. There needs to be some response to that, other than, okay, that's fine. So that's the first thing. Second thing, we need a new city attorney. Probably a civil rights lawyer. I've got a few people in mind, but I don't know everybody in the city, though. So I'll be looking for a civil rights attorney that will be part of the new policy, which I want to help write. I have a political science degree, so I want to write a new policy for the police. Every officer is going to get a copy of this. This is the Constitution, okay? And we need to look at this and rewrite our policing procedure based upon the Fourth Amendment, okay? Okay, based upon our rights, okay? You can't uphold the law by breaking the law. You can't do that.
Okay. Next question. Real simple. Are you pro-life or are you pro-choice? Explain if you'd like.
Okay. As a Christian, I believe in the sanctity of all life. Okay? In the context of democracy, everyone has the right to make up their own mind on this issue. Okay? I think that's important. Okay? The great thing about democracy is everyone gets to vote, everyone gets their voice, and the laws is based upon the dynamic of that. However, it is a pro-life issue to provide paid maternity leave. It is a pro-life issue that we deal with police accountability in the killing of indigenous people. It is a pro-life issue when it deals with the issue of immigration, because when you have families who come to a country of immigrants who get treated like they're on a different planet, i.e. our Latino community, i.e. our Native American community. So what about their life? I'm for their life. Their right to have a quality of life and to be acknowledged that every single person on this soil is human, has a right to be here.
Okay. Next question. Do you believe the current city administration and the current county and state administration has handled the response to COVID-19 well, or could it be improved upon, and if so, how?
I'm going to go back to one of the conferences that I attended on state interference, okay? And it has been the consensus of lawmakers that they have not done a good job. They have dropped the ball. They haven't even picked it up in some cases. So there's no cohesive leadership, because it comes from my national leadership, we have a lack of that too. So, and that's why Tennessee is so far behind the 8 ball, you won't even get around it. So it has been the consensus of different leaders around the state that were on that call that no. Okay, so I want to defer to them. People, our own County Commissioner David Sharp and different mayors, everyone that was on that panel has unequivocally said no. Okay, it has not been well, because the proof is in the pudding. How come we are so far behind the curve in deaths? Okay, how come we have so many hospitals that have closed? How come we're not spending Medicaid? Okay, so it has been the consistency of the lawmakers that were on that conference call, and I'm going to say no, absolutely not. We need to have cohesive leadership from the top down, and in the state cities, our hands are tied because you also have communities. I saw this map on the Zoom call. You got 22 counties that don't even have a hospital, give or take. Okay, so historically, we've been screwed on this issue, and we need. That's my philosophy. Put the public back in public office. Get on a ballot, run for office, and take our state back. Okay, because those closest to the pain must be closer to the policy.
Okay. Let me ask you this question. You've got holding a copy of the Constitution. What's your view on the Second Amendment?
I don't think it's taught properly. Okay.
What? You don't think it's taught? Oh,
everybody thinks it means the right to bear arms. So I actually have it here. And in my point of view, I am pro National Guard. Well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. I am pro-National Guard. That is what it says. Now, if you take the protections of the Fourth Amendment, which have to do with private property rights, you take the protections of the Ninth Amendment, which has to do with the enumeration of rights not to exclude anyone, and the protections of the Tenth Amendment being powers over the people. So you take what you think the Second Amendment says and add it to protections for the Fourth, Ninth, and Tenth, you could get, through a broad constructionist view, the right to purchase a firearm, use it for self-defense, but not the right to murder. So my position is, when I learned this in school, I just learned the right to bear arms. So I've learned the Bill of Rights for dummies, and people are dying because we refuse to tell people the truth about what this really says.
Okay. Just a couple more questions. How will you approach the problem of shootings in Chattanooga? It seems like every weekend there's 2 or 3 or 4 people shot, usually the young guys, drive-by shootings, shooting into houses, things like that. Well, how would you approach that? They've had a commission on this stuff for years.
Well, when the state voted to allow us to get a gun license online, it made a bad situation worse.
Okay.
So the city, anyone who says a city mayor's hand city mayor can walk up to Nashville and tell them to change the law, live in another world. Because you want to stop shootings in Chattanooga, you got to get on a ballot, run for your local House of Representative seat all around the state, and change the laws to where we have actual gun reform. Because your hands are tied if you're the mayor, because you got a state law you got to worry about. I mean, how are you going to stop shooting when people can get guns online? I understand that the problems that we face have to do with a state policy, a county policy. Okay? And education on what the Second Amendment actually says when it doesn't. So this problem has been going on for generations. And it won't be solved overnight, but it has to do with educating the public and us taking back and going to the heart of conservative politics, because that's a teddy bear while you're getting messed over by corporate America. Conservative politics is what has killed people in our city, and and it's the most infuriating word. I can serve wealth, I can serve power, and you're going to die.
All right. Last question. What will you advocate for the need for affordable housing within the city?
In the course of the pandemic, how many have lost their jobs? That's rhetorical. Housing is not affordable if you make $10 an hour. Okay?
What do you do about it?
The union living wage protocol. Increase the wages of the working poor. Because if I make $10 an hour, if I make $400 a week, where am I going to live? I'm going to be on Section 8. I'm going to be in a rent control department on the west side. I'm going to live with friends. I'm going to work 3 jobs. Housing is not affordable if you don't pay anybody a living wage. Okay? And more people being out of job, what are you going to do with $275 a week unemployment and the government playing games? We'll add some here and some here. So let's just say you've got a job and then it's been reduced to unemployment, and then you get a plus up that gets cut off, a smaller plus up. We need government, because it was bad before. It's like the Cuomo low tide, high tide speech, if you saw it. Things were bad before. Now it's even worse. So the word affordable housing means nothing if we don't address how many working poor we have in Chattanooga.
All right.
Because nothing is affordable at my wage.
That's really all the questions we've got. Any last words? We need to keep it short, though. We're running out of time.
Thank you. When you go to the polls and you think about who to vote for, think about your mom, think about your dad, think about your neighborhood. We have one chance to take this city back and to change history. Vote George Ryan Love, and we're going to change history. During the Love Revolution, find me on Facebook, you'll find me at Erlanger, you'll find me downtown. I'm on your side, I'm in the fight, and we're in this together. Thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. And Ryan's phone number and email are up there. You can call him or get in contact with him if you have any more questions or would like to help him with this campaign.
I could use the help. Thank you.
And
it's our campaign. It's not just me.
And again,
it's ours.
the election is March 2nd. Early voting will begin February the 10th. And you can go to our website and you can find all of the mayoral candidates with their links to their website or their Facebook page at hamiltonflourishing.org. And they'll have these interviews up for those who've responded. And you can also register to vote through there, and you can also find out if one of the district offices, what district you're in, so you know who you vote for. So I'm Doug Doherty. We've been talking to George Ryan Love, candidate for mayor, and we thank you for listening, and have a great day. Bye-bye.
Thank you all.